Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod. I'm your host, Josh. We've got a very special guest in the Escape Pod today from rebelscum.com, which is a website dedicated to Star Wars collecting news. So Adam and I have known each other for a while. We met at one of the Force Fridays at a Toys R Us in our area years ago, back in 2017. He was the perfect guest to bring on the show to talk about Star Wars merchandise, collecting. He's a big collector himself. He grew up with the original films in England, and his first action figure was one of the Kenner series, and he's got plenty of stories to share. So let's hear it from Adam Lamping.
Another happy landing.
Yeah, how you doing, man? It's been a long time.
It's been a while, hasn't it? I'll just excuse me 1 second while I rearrange. But yeah, it has been a while. But yeah, things going well. How about you?
Yeah, pretty good. You know, working from home and stuff. It's just the times, you know. But,
Oh yeah.
I think many of us are going to look back and remember this very fond era.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely.
Yeah. But so the last time I think we met, I guess, was at one of the Force Fridays. I think, wasn't it?
I think it was I think it was for The Last Jedi because that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was at Langley Toys R Us. Yeah, and obviously we didn't get 3 3/4 inch or not an actual line for The Rise of Skywalker. So
right.
That was the last time. I think that was probably the last time we had like a pretty decent. I'm trying to think now. Yeah, I guess there was a fairly plentiful supply of figures, if I remember rightly, that night. I know the subsequent Force Fridays were pretty shambolic.
Yeah.
So I went along to I guess it's probably the Toys R Us at Coquitlam, and very, very pitiful display.
Man.
So yeah.
It was our local mall that had the only Force Friday, I think, in our entire region, and know, because most of them are in the States and stuff. And that was the one that was the 2017 one. But it's funny, I think a lot of the hype around Star Wars in general that year was quite big, like Celebration. I think you were there at Celebration too, right?
Yes.
And that one was, I think, what they referred to as the biggest one that had ever happened. And it's crazy because all this hype kind of like was built up that year, and then The Last Jedi came out. And then I feel like so many people were disappointed, but it's just funny how things work out. But
indeed.
But it's been a long time, and it's been like, I started up this podcast like over a year ago now.
Excellent.
And I don't know if you remember my buddy, but he actually had to cancel on me like 2 hours ago. He was like stuck at an event. So he sends his regrets. He wasn't able to make it.
Unfortunate.
But yeah, I think you met him there as well. But it's it was about a year and a bit ago that this started up, and I was rummaging through my drawer lately and came across my giant stack of business cards that I don't tend to throw away.
Right, no, I'm the same. Much the same.
And I found yours in there, and I was like, oh man, it's been years since I saw Adam down at the mall, and I thought like you'd be the perfect guy to come on and just chat about Star Wars collecting, because like that's kind of your thing. And so maybe just like, I guess if you want to start maybe just sharing kind of how you grew up with Star Wars in your life and kind of what brought you into the fandom and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess I consider myself, or I would be classed as like the original generation. So I went to see Star Wars: A New Hope. Where I think in the UK it was 1978 when it first showed there, and my dad took me along to see that, and his recollection of the evening is that I seem to have I seem to know like a lot about the movie already, so I was pointing at different things and describing different things, and I do remember sort of collecting some of the magazines. There was stuff in magazines at the time, and I had a few of the figures. So Princess Leia was the first figure I ever bought from the original line, and I lost her blaster on
the Kenner series, right?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly, from the original 12 on a Palitoy. So in the UK, in case it wasn't obvious, I didn't grow up in Canada, but in the UK, the Kenner line was actually. Yeah, it was distributed by Palitoy, and that they actually had their own card backs. And so, yeah, I went to the store. Princess Leia was the only one they had in the store, so that was I was determined to get one, so I wasn't put off.
Yeah.
And got Princess Leia, but unfortunately made the mistake of opening her in the car on the way home, and before I got home I'd lost a blaster. So I mean, man. Clearly like 40 odd years later, and I'm still it's never lost me that pain. So I did get to replace her. I had got a replacement with blaster, so that's good. And I collected pretty much from there on in, I guess until about 83, 84, with the dark times, as people know them as, and even then, like I kept everything that I originally had. Didn't throw anything out. I was fortunate enough that my parents didn't throw anything out. I know many people have suffered that fate of having parents throw their old toys out or giving them away or whatever. But I was very fortunate. My parents gave away other stuff of mine, but fortunately none of my Star Wars. I think they knew not to do that. And then back when Power of the Force 2 was released, I guess during that time I picked up bits and pieces here and there. So I picked up when Heir to the Empire was released. I was all over that, and I was reading the few magazines that were released. The Lucasfilm Insider, I think was it Insider back then? Maybe just the Lucasfilm magazine. So I was picking up bits and pieces here. I even had a Stormtrooper standee that I saw in the comic store and was like, I've got to have that. But it was back when Power of the Force 2 was launched, and got back into collecting. Was very much.
What year was that? Was that in like late 90s?
Yeah. Let me think. That was 96.
So like special edition,
95, kind of. 96, yeah, just prior to this, a few years before the special edition. I feel like it's 95 or 96. I probably, this is around there. I'm just blanking on the actual date, but obviously, I mean, anybody who remembers those figures knows that the first wave, or the first couple of waves of Power of the Force 2, with the bulky, the Luke on steroids. Well, all of the figures were on steroids in all honesty at that point. But it was new Star Wars figures, and so people were like not really that fussed about it. To not enough, I guess, for most people to not collect them. But yeah, I was buying the figures. I was buying the vehicles and everything and anything I could kind of lay my hands on, and that's really like when collecting Star Wars came back. And Star Wars collecting came back. I hadn't been smart enough, unfortunately, to collect like the Kenner figures while everyone else was getting rid of them. So I wasn't unfortunately didn't think that one through, but got back into modern collecting.
That's something I've never, anytime I hear the Kenner action figures brought up, it's always about trying to find them, trying to get them, you know, holding on to them. I never hear anyone talk about that time that everyone was getting rid of them, you know? That's like, it's hard to believe that there ever was a time that people would get rid of, you know, Star Wars action figures like that. But I guess you never know what's going to go up in value. And exactly.
Yeah. And I guess people generally thought Star Wars was done, and it was something that wasn't going to come back, and that kind of the novelty wore off for a lot of people. And I mean, I think as far as the movies were concerned, I think people were always happy to kind of sit down and rewatch the movies time and time again. But as far as the collecting of the toys was concerned, they're probably thinking, well, I'm too old for this kind of thing now, and either I could be any number of different reasons, but I know girls or like being attracted to others back then was something else that maybe put people off from having toys around. So
action figures and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So that was definitely something that factored into it at that point, certainly for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, people were getting rid of them, and like I say, there were some smarter folks out there smarter than me that were thinking, well, this is a perfect opportunity to grab up all these things, all these toys that I maybe didn't have when they were younger. So yeah, totally. That's definitely one of those things. If I had a DeLorean, I'd be going back to the mid '80s to try and get on that gravy train.
Yeah, totally. Have you done any like more recent collecting of any of the new Black Series, like the 6-inch figures, any of that?
Yeah, I'm still hanging in there to some degree when it comes to the vintage collection and the Black Series. I'm trying to stay on top of those. So it's challenging. So I'm guessing you're familiar with Toy Traders in Langley.
Oh yeah.
So they thankfully keep me stocked up with most of the new releases, but the exceptions would be like the Walmart exclusives, and there are certain exclusives that they can't get a hold of. So it's challenging to stay on top of everything, but I don't do too badly. I can't really complain. So
if you were to I guess summarize just like just a general number, like just ballpark of like as to how many of the 6-inch ones you have.
I know it's more than the original 96 from the Kenner line. I would say I mean, this is one of the things that not spending as much time with Rebel Scum as I have done in the past, I've kind of lost track a little bit of how many have been released, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's somewhere in the region of a couple of hundred now. And wow. I've got a fair number of those.
So where exactly do you keep them all? Because it's hard to store, especially if you keep them in the boxes. Because I know that at this stage in time, you don't unbox them on the way home, right?
No, I do not. No, not when I'm driving. So it's even more hazardous if I was doing that. But at this point, my current circumstances dictate that I just have to kind of stack them in a corner somewhere. So they are gathering dust, but I'm looking forward to I'll be moving later in the year. Looking forward to having a bit more space, and I'll definitely be displaying
wallpaper. Yeah, make your own wallpaper out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a coworker a couple of years ago, and we both have we have a desk job and stuff, and he's had a couple of desks over, and I kind of approached him one day because he had some of these action figures on his desk and stuff, and he had some of these boxes like tucked away behind his monitors, like even more than I couldn't see. And I was like, man, you got quite a few back there. And he's like, yeah, my wife doesn't know about them. Yeah. And he's also from England as well. And so him and I had some pretty good talks about nice. His growing up in the early days when Star Wars was coming out and stuff. He fell in love with the Black Series and with the release of all the newer films and stuff, kind of got back into the collecting business and stuff. So he
Excellent.
slowly kind of takes them home after like a couple weeks, you know. I thought it was just hilarious. But as my time there kind of accumulated, I think I spent close to 4 months or something there at this place, and the pile just kind of grew and grew.
Oh, really? I mean, that's the thing. They've been coming out thick and fast. It really, it's. I mean, that's what I mean about trying to stay on top of the releases, because they Hasbro have been churning them out. Less so the vintage collection, but the Black Series, it's just
printing money. It's printing money for them. Like, it's brutal. But because as a collector, of course, you go in with the standpoint of wanting to have them all, right? Yeah, and then of course, exactly. Yeah, and then of course, when you're spending, hundreds of dollars a year, it's trying to just like have all the ones that get released, and let alone even trying to find them, especially these days. It's brutal, right? Like it's just like. Yeah, I know it's a terrible first world perspective, but it's like if you don't have them all, you're not happy, right?
No, it's a sorry state of affairs, but it's
right. It's
definitely the pain is real.
Yeah. So you've been involved with rebelscum.com, which is like a website that deals with Star Wars collecting news and stuff like that. When did you kind of like start volunteering there, and how that happened? What are they kind of all about?
Well, it goes back. I mean, I'm getting close to having been there for a decade, and like I said earlier, my involvement has been. I've been less involved in the last few years just because of other priorities and other things coming up. But I started back in 2012. So I got to know somebody else from the site, Dave Myatt. So he's been on the site for 20 odd years, I think now. Actually, has it? Something in the region of it's
that's
quite
a long time.
It's a long time, so maybe not that long actually, but for a fair few years. And got to know him, and he invited me to get on board and help him with the photo archive. So because I have a technical background, he's very much he's all about the creative sides. So he's a photographer. He shoots all the toys, and he needed some assistance with creating the pages, the web pages for the photo archive. So basically, he would just send me a link to the FTP folder with all the images in that he'd shot, and I would just build up the photo archive pages. And then over time, I was contributing on the front page as well, writing stories from time to time. But by and large, my involvement was very much on the kind of in the background with the photo archive.
Yeah, that's still pretty cool regardless. I mean, like Rebel Scum, it just, from my own, fan knowledge, it's just been this site that's been around forever. And
it has. Yeah. And
I didn't realize it was 20 years, but I guess it's been a while. Yeah.
Well, 96, I think, is when Philip Wise first launched his site, which was Philip's Star Wars Toys and Collectibles, or something along those lines, and then it morphed into Rebel Scum within a year or two, I think. It's been around for a long time, and it's been an absolute privilege to have contributed to it. And if time were permitting, then I'd love to be able to do more. But there's a good group of guys still hanging in there. So.
Yeah, totally. So like some of the, I guess the goals of the website, would you say, if someone was a Star Wars collector, kind of like how would you recommend the site to them, I guess?
Yeah, it's basically like the photo archive is there for collectors to go and see what figures have been released. I mean, like our primary focus is very much the Hasbro lines, so Vintage Collection, Black Series, but the 5 POA that have been released in recent years, and it's basically just somewhere that collectors can go and just see what's been released, and then if they want to learn like find all the details about the figures, so what they come with, what weapons, and they can match things up. And the number of times we've had collectors reach out to us and say that the photo archive is invaluable when they've found a weapon and it's been, or they've had a bunch of figures in a pile and they've got the weapons have been separated and they've just been able to match them all up, and they've gone to the photo archive and seen which weapon comes with which figure and everything else. And so for that, it's just it really is an invaluable resource for collectors.
Yeah. Have you then had, because I mean, I don't know if Hasbro takes the same kind of attention to taking photos of all their stuff, but has Rebel Scum in general have been approached, or even specifically you, about using the photo archive for any of like the books and stuff that have been published over the years regarding collectibles?
There've been a number of occasions where books have contained images from Rebel Scum. I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, because the books that the likes of Steve Sansweet have written, they've usually they've added their own or used their own imagery. So they've just taken new images. But we've had, I know I've seen our images in a number of different books. I think Celebration, there was in a recent Celebration brochure, one of the programs, they used images from Rebel Scum, and we get requests all the time. I mean, a lot of the time you'll see Rebel Scum images on eBay for stuff, and people are just using them. But we also get a lot of people who are respectful and have contacted the site and said, "Do you mind if we use these?" And back to your original question. I know they have been used in books and different media over the years.
Cool. Yeah. Is there any like first person collaboration between like Rebel Scum and Hasbro, or of any kind?
Generally speaking, I mean, it's not something that I've ever really gotten involved in myself directly, just because I haven't been the one taking the photographs. But I know Hasbro have used the Rebel Scum photo archive as a point of reference themselves, and so that information has kind of been fed back to us at times. That's pretty cool. They've been checking it out. They've been like, "Have we released this figure before? Let's go check the Rebel Scum archives." We have. Or,
that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair,
you think they would have somebody on their end that keeps track of that stuff?
Well, I dare say they have somebody, but then when people are like, they have staff turnover and everything, people moving on to different departments, then sometimes it's difficult. I don't think they've got, if they had like a Leyland Chi who is the kind of the hologram keeper of Hasbro, then I would expect them to be on top of everything. But I think it's just the nature of the business and people moving between brands at times that they don't necessarily always have somebody who's on top of everything.
Right. Yeah. And, I guess regarding recent news, I heard a rumor that Hasbro has kind of been ordered or something like that, and maybe it's on their own account, that they're pulling a lot of these Cara Dune action figures off the shelf and stuff. Is that
seems to be? I haven't heard anything official. All I know is like the news that I've seen. I mean, I was on Entertainment Earth today, and I noticed that all their pre-orders are no longer. I think they're calling it pre-order sold out. But I think a lot of sites have basically made their Cara Dune figures unavailable. So. Yeah. If you've got one, then great. I mean, it's one of those things where I know there've been times when you buy figures as soon as they come out, because you just don't know what's going to be a peg warmer and what's not, and you think, there's no point taking a chance and guessing at what might be a peg warmer, because you'll end up striking out and paying through the nose later on. So I tend to, where I can, get figures as soon as I possibly can. But I know a lot of collectors passed up on Cara Dune, it would seem, based on like the chatter I've seen on social media about people upset that they didn't get their Cara Dune figure, and now they're probably not going to get one unless second-hand market. So.
It's too bad. I mean, I have a few of the Black Series myself, so
Right.
I have. It's very few, and I wouldn't consider myself a Black Series collector. I've just kind of bought the odd one here and there.
Yeah.
But while I was at Celebration, I did get the Luke Skywalker on the card back.
Oh yeah.
The metallic one.
Sure,
I think it was the 40th anniversary for A New Hope. That year. So I got that. It's
Red
still
5.
in the box. Yeah, Red 5. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they have redistributed that in different packaging, but on that particular packaging, it's pretty hard to get.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I'm happy to have that. And then I also went out of my way to order the Captain Rex the first Hasbro convention version.
Yes, it has got,
the Has Gone one. Yeah. So I was happy I got that because Rex is like one of my favorite characters. So
nice.
So I went out of my way for that one.
Yeah.
I've got Thrawn, a battle droid, Ahsoka from Star Wars Rebels, and from the original packaging, and then I got Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker from The Last Jedi. So
nice.
Those are kind of my little collection there. But on the odd occasion, I'll walk through Toy Traders or another store, and I think to myself like, oh, that's a pretty cool looking figure, and I'll keep tabs on it and stuff, and I really should just buy it right away, and then it's gone. And this happened to me with Nihilus, with Revan,
really?
with Revan, and it's like those are the guys that I would assume that would go really quickly because other people ask for them. But action figures though, it's like you walk by a character like Cara Dune on the shelf, you're like, oh yeah, there's going to be another one,
exactly,
6 months time, whatever, and you just never know, right? Like
exactly,
it's going to be gone just like that. So.
Yeah, well, this is why Sio Bibble from the Phantom Menace is so hard to come by. Nobody thought people would collectors would want him, but he's.
Which one was that?
Sio Bibble. So the what was it the transmission jam can mean only one thing. It's invasion. That guy. I'm butchering the quote, but it's that guy.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But you get these figures, and people are like, he's going to be plentiful. And then, that probably was maybe the final wave of the Phantom Menace. So, that's always a fairly telling thing that you need to get on that when you can. But
definitely.
It just goes to show you can never be certain what's going to be available and what's not.
Yeah. Is action figures kind of like the thing that you stick to, or is there any other collecting you do?
I primarily is the action figures, although over the years I've collected Kotobukiya. I always can never remember how to properly pronounce that. So I'm probably going to have somebody screaming at me that I'm mispronouncing that. My buddy Dave will probably give me he'd wrap my knuckles for not being able to pronounce that correctly. But I've in the last few years I've picked up some Hot Toys, Gentle Giant. I have quite a few mini busts, a number of statues, Sideshow. I'm looking at some Lego as well. So pretty much,
right.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so you got stuff from across
I do focus on the figures, but there's other stuff as well. And I'm noticing your Vader and Stormtrooper helmets in the back, which is pretty sweet.
Yes.
So I did pick up Hasbro's Vader helmet, and but it really just depends on what takes my fancy when I see something. So.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat in that sense. I think the one thing I got to say that I'm a avid collector on, or have been for quite a while, was I got into the Star Wars miniatures board game many years ago. Yeah. It was before Fantasy Flight. This was Wizards of the Coast. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it.
And I got into it because it was at one point I was wanting to get some of the cards, like the original Wizards of the Coast card game, and I called Wisers, which is another local kind of store, and I called them as like, do you have any of these Star Wars cards that my neighbor had them, and I wanted to and they're like, no, we don't have any of the cards, but we've got Star Wars minis, and I was like, what's Star Wars minis? Like, I
Yeah.
had no idea. You know, like I think I owned a whole of one Star Wars Insider back in the day.
Okay,
and
yeah.
that was it was an advertisement on the back of that magazine. Now that I look at it again.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah.
it was. I went down there. You know, I was with my dad and so and he bought me like the starter set and everything. Which at the time I think the game had only been out for like a year or two,
Okay.
maybe. And so this was around the same time that Revenge of the Sith had come out. So
Right, nice.
this was, you know, it was a while ago. It was like
Yeah.
16-ish years ago. And so I got the starter set and everything, and I loved the game, and I loved the idea of having a little guy that, you know, matched up with the card and everything.
Yeah,
So, you know, the booster packs, they had a wall of them, like all these different colorful pictures and everything. And
Yeah.
I loved how you could just buy a pack of like for $14 or $15, you get 7
Yeah.
random guys. And I just fell in love with the game and
Yeah.
like everything about it, like the collecting aspect of it, the game
Yep.
itself, like
Yep.
everything. And I got like 2 or 3 friends of mine into it as well.
Nice.
And but I've just kind of persisted kind of buying them. And then another friend of mine who's actually been on the show once or twice before, he actually got into the game after it got canceled.
Okay.
And then I said to him, I said, you better start buying up these things as much as you can because they're going to be gone. Like they're not going to, you know, the Wizards of the Coast lost the license to Star Wars. Fantasy Flight got it. They started doing their own thing. And the most recent packs that you could get was from it was called the Masters of the Force lineup.
Okay.
And they had like a series of 40 random guys. They made them all pretty OP and they did all the aliens from the Jar Jar table and stuff.
Oh, nice.
And and it was so cool. But a couple of years ago, I kind of looked at my collection of like, which is now around 300 or more of these little things.
Wow.
And I was like, I gotta like make these cards like, you know, protect them or something because they're just out in the open. So I went and bought all those hard case kind of card things, and put them all in those things. So so now I've got this display case in another room with like all these like guys from all these different factions, and it's still there's a database software online called Star Wars Mini Manager, and I downloaded it at one point and took like you can database like which ones you have.
Sure.
And I think I only had like it was like not even 30% of like what's actually available. And that's because I got some duplicates, like there's some clones that I have like 4 of the same guy or whatever, but in total, like of unique figures there was over 1,000, and it's amazing. Like the game is phenomenal because they have everything from characters from comic books and novels from like the 90s and the 80s and stuff, and you know, characters from like short stories and the video games and everything. They just put it all out, and that was way before the whole Disney kind of like this is now Legends and canon. Like they kind of made the split a little more obvious, right? So they just, you know, Wizards of the Coast didn't care. They're producing things left, right, and center from all types of properties, and and Clone Wars season 2 I think was the last Clone Wars that had figures for. Which, come to think of it now, is it's hard to believe that show is that old already. But
I know, it's scary.
That was kind of like my main collecting habit, and I don't know. I bought some of the X-Wing figures over the years. I've gotten into Legion, Imperial Assault, you know, all that stuff. It's just not the same. You know, there's something about kind of my obsession with Star Wars miniatures that is kind of lingered all this time, and I don't think I'm gonna ever lose it. So thanks to sites like trollandtoad.com or you know, even going down to Toy Trader they still have some of them like loose in the case that they've had for ages. And so the game I think is relatively still alive because I occasionally see new ones show up and other ones get sold. So there's other people out there buying them. There's definitely other people buying them. Troll and Toad, like they do sometimes get some new ones in stock, and that you can buy as singles and all that. But I mean, it's this game that I don't think I've ever met anyone else like out of the blue that have randomly also been a player and a collector of this game. It's usually just been me and kind of my inner circle of people, but that's one of my kind of big collecting things. But
that's cool.
Yeah. Do you stay on top of any of the story material that has been coming out? I mean, you're a pretty avid fan, right? So
Yeah, not as much as I'd like. Just purely because of like so many different obligations right now that the time doesn't permit me to stay on top of that. I was collecting the comics and was buying the books, but I just haven't been able to. It's pretty almost ashamed to say I haven't read a Star Wars book in quite some time, but it's just there's too many other things unfortunately monopolizing my time. But I'd like to read up on or read some of the High Republic. That seems to have been a big success, but so far, haven't had the opportunity. So, what about yourself?
Tomorrow, with the whole launch of the High Republic and stuff, because like kind of like how you put it earlier, it's sometimes hard to stay on top of this stuff, and you know, even outside of action figures, like the amount of books and comics that come out half the time it's like a little overwhelming. But
sure,
with the launch of the High Republic, I kind of said to Blake, who's the other guy that would have been here, and some friends of ours, and I said, okay, High Republic, this is kind of this new thing. It's going to be a starting point to kind of stay on top of this stuff as it comes out. So I said to them, I said, I'm going to be doing it. I'm going to be reading all the comics, all the books as they come out as much as I can. And trying to stay on top of it. So we did our first kind of group book discussion and review for Light of the Jedi a week ago, and I think the episode actually drops tomorrow on Monday.
Nice.
But we three of us read it, and I had it on digital. They listened to the audiobooks. They had a different experience, so we kind of collaborated over how the book both sounded and read. I had some annotations that I highlighted through the book, and we kind of went through it section by section and broke it down story wise and did a full review on it and stuff.
Excellent.
And it was one of the best original Star Wars stories I think I've read in the last couple of years. Like it was
awesome.
It was very, very well done.
Yeah,
so,
that's Charles. It's Charles Soule, isn't it? Again, I'm not sure if I can't remember how he pronounces his surname, but
I think it's Charles Soule. And he's kind of known for doing a lot of the better comic books. And stuff
exactly.
As well.
Yeah, like the Lando one.
Lando, Vader.
He did the Vader.
He did the Rise of Kylo Ren as well.
That's right. Yeah.
So he's done a few of them, and all of them that he's worked on have been just
really well received.
Really well received, really well written, and I think the one that blew me, because Vader I heard good things about. I read it and I was like, wow, this is awesome. But the Lando one took me by surprise, because I didn't expect much of it, and then I read it, I was blown away. I was like, this is so much better than I actually thought it would.
Exactly.
So he's a really talented guy, and I don't think they could have picked anyone better to write this first book, but I guess out of into the dark and a Test of Courage are the other two books kind of on my list to get through. One of them is a junior novel, and then the other one is a young adult novel. And and in the classic Star Wars fashion, all these stories kind of tie together and make a cohesive narrative and stuff like that. But I thought it was a good opportunity, as well as the Marvel and the IDW comic series for High Republic. So I thought it was a good opportunity, though, to kind of, I saw it as my jump in point again, because I do stay on top of some of these things, but then others kind of slip by. Like I still need to read books like Queen's Peril and so some of the more notable ones that have come out. I regret to share that I haven't actually read them yet, but with this High Republic stuff, I was like, it does, especially for business. Yeah, for sure. And with High Republic, I kind of made myself like a 2021 goal is just to stay on top of this stuff as much as possible. Just until the Acolyte comes out, and that way, we'll have a good lead in there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. I'd forgotten about the Acolyte was kind of set in that era, if I remember rightly. So.
Yeah, yeah. How have you? Because I guess there's been a little more time for watching shows and stuff lately.
Yeah.
How did you like all the live action stuff you've seen on Disney Plus so far with season 2 and season 1 of The Mandalorian, and kind of what we're getting
it was
eventually?
just incredible. It was just so good. I mean, it's something that I was able to take. I have three kids. I took them all to see the sequels and the standalone movies as well. But being able to kind of sit down on a weekly basis and watch new Star Wars live action TV was just incredible, and we all really got into it. Like there's a couple of times we were getting up at 5:30 to watch it before taking them off to school. So, but I'd say to them the night before, like, I'm going to get up early to watch this. Are you going to stay in bed? And they're like, no, you wake us up. So, but that was really special to be able to watch that with them. But just the show itself is just incredible. And I love what the way they've done things, and I like the characters that they've introduced, like the new characters that we've gotten to know over time, and then just like dropping in these familiar characters from time to time as well, and it's just been very well executed. So really enjoyed it.
I love how it pays some great continuation to not only the animated shows and stuff, but to the original trilogy as well. And I think it's, in a way, it's a bit of an offshoot from, I think, what a lot of us would have hoped the sequels look like, in a way, much more integrated into those movies. But I just love what they're doing with the shows, and and I thought to myself, more recently, the group of us, we had an episode that we did speculate. It was reading through an article that was written in the 1980s, speculating on what the Clone Wars was. Okay, and right. I was thinking to myself, I was like, wow, like this is this live action Star Wars time where people don't need to wait 3 years to wonder what's going to happen next. People need to wait 7 days.
Yeah, no. And I was even that felt too long. So
I know. Right? You almost want it right away. But so many people were like, oh, why can't they just do the whole like Netflix binge thing and just dump the season online? I'm like, you gotta wait.
I mean, I get why people just want to inject it into their brains, and into their eyeballs. But I think that the advantage of doing it the way they've done it is, like we've seen it with WandaVision now as well. It just gives people the opportunity to kind of digest what they've seen and discuss and everything, and then it builds up anticipation for the next episode. Right. And, I mean, I know there's a lot of complaints for people spoiling these episodes, and it's bad when it's one episode. Just imagine if those people that are in a position to be able to watch an entire season as soon as it drops, and then it just like spoilers, just spoiling it for everybody else. I mean, I'd much rather it be this way. So I'm quite happy with the weekly release that they've been doing. So and hope they'll stick with it. And it seems like that's the approach they're taking. So.
Yeah, for sure. I thought to myself, like with the whole kind of waiting period, it's classic Star Wars fashion to have fans wait and speculate on stuff, and hence kind of my subject of bringing up the article. But I'm actually kind of curious, like when you were kind of growing up in that OG fan group, what did you think the Clone Wars was? Back in like 1980, when all you had was A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, like what did you think it was? Yeah.
That's a really good question. And
or was it just not important? Like I'm kind of curious as to the line that Obi-Wan presents to Luke, right? And talking about his father, and then Luke says, "Oh, you fought in the Clone Wars," and this kind of widely known thing. And I was after I read this article about this guy it's in a 1980s magazine,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
it was written from the point of view of this guy who Revenge of the Jedi wasn't actually out yet.
No, sure.
And it was 3 years away, and he was kind of writing it a couple months after seeing Empire and speculating on what was to come as well as what happened before, because at this point in time when Empire came out, it was titled Episode 5. So everyone was kind of now at this point aware. It's like, oh, there's more before as well. What is the Clone Wars kind of thing? So what was your stuff back then?
In all honesty, it's interesting now that you asked me that, because I'm not sure as I ever really kind of gave it that much thought, or possibly more likely is just my memory is just not that great anymore. Getting on, and it's not. I'm trying to think if I ever did talk about it. I quite possibly did, but what my thoughts of it were kind of escape me right now. So I'm going to have to pass on that question, which is a little embarrassing. But obviously,
like,
probably struck a chord at the time, but
right.
what I thought back then is completely escapes me now. Right.
Yeah, it's a question I think that I enjoy asking to anyone who kind of grew up in that time period, and because it's such a big thing. I mean, we have like a what would have been an 8 season, which is now a 7-season animated series. Yeah. And it's it's one of the best animated series that's ever been released on television. I mean, arguably. Yeah. And I would say visually the most appealing animated show on the planet. Like just the quality is unmatched, right? Yeah, absolutely. And so it's now with Disney Plus and everything, it's received a lot more attention. But before, when it was coming out and everything, it was interesting comparing what this article had to say about what he thought and what actually it ended up being. Yeah. And some things were kind of bang on with certain characters, because at the time I think there was 2 books that had also been released. There was a Han Solo book on the shelf, and I think it was Splinter the Mind's Eye. Yeah. Okay. So I think he took references from those to kind of speculate. Yeah, to help kind of ballpark it a bit more. Yeah. And so things like how he thought Darth Vader was once a slave was like on the head. And there was a few other things that I was like, oh wow, like he did a good job here. But then other things were like way out there, thinking Obi-Wan was like a clone designation number. I do remember. Just things like that.
Yeah, I think that rings a bell. I think I have a vague recollection of hearing about this article, and remember this thing about Obi-Wan being a clone designation. I mean, I think one of the things I do remember back when I was a kid was reading the Return of the Jedi novel, and just that. I mean, it's still quite vivid that that piece about Obi-Wan fighting Anakin, and just reading it for the first time, Anakin Skywalker was quite something. I think I remember running down to a friend's house and just saying, I know the name of Luke's dad. It's like incredible. But the idea of Vader falling into this molten pit of lava, so that was something special when Revenge of the Sith came around. That kind of, you're finally seeing this stuff that you'd only previously read in a novelization. So that's a memory I have. But Clone Wars not so much, for some strange reason. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, no, I guess, and it's funny. Like, I feel like maybe there might have been some disappointment with the films in the sense that you see the very beginning of the Clone War and then the very end. And then that's it, you never see the in between, right? And because that was something else that came up in this particular article was that he speculated that episode 1 would be called the Clone Wars, right? Or the Clone War, I guess. And obviously that didn't happen, but it just kind of made me think. It's like, oh yeah, I guess in film, I'm so used to just thinking of it as an animated series, but
Yeah.
it's really an event that kind of on cinema screen just got skipped over a little bit. But many of these, and it was something that was supposed to be such a big event, but a lot of these other like things in the story that, like the lava concept of Anakin and Obi-Wan's final duel and or second last duel, I guess. And all these other things kind of were in George's head and had it brewing in his head for almost 15 or more years before finally sitting down to write this trilogy, which ended up I love those movies to death. But they ended up at the time being somewhat, I guess, not controversial, but divisive among some fans.
Well, I think we've obviously seen a lot of division in the fandom in recent years, quite clearly. But the prequels weren't received well by a lot of the original generation, like myself. I mean, I enjoyed them. I do enjoy the prequels, but I know a lot of people were just completely turned off them, and they just didn't appreciate them for what they were. And I think, it's been said before. I'm not not the first one to say it, but like they were written for kids. We'd outgrown. Like we kind of weren't the target audience anymore, and we were still wanting these films to deliver what we'd seen in the original trilogy. And when they failed to do that, we were just kind of left disappointed. And there's a lot of expectation. That period of time had built up, and people were just, they had this idea of what they wanted to see on screen, and when it didn't match up, then they threw their toys out of the pram. So, I think that it's interesting to see how over the years people have kind of come around to them, and I think it's also fair to say that the Clone Wars has thrown a different light on the prequel trilogy and those movies, and people have become kind of more appreciative of them just by virtue of the stories that have been told in the Clone Wars. So it's kind of done an extra job there than just delivering its own story narrative.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And now heading into the Bad Batch, which will be coming out in the next 2 months or so, I guess, which is already pretty soon.
I know.
I mean, I not once did I ever think when Disney canceled the Clone Wars that we would ever be getting it back. But not only did we get it back after years of protesting, but we actually are getting a sequel show, which is beyond my level of comprehension. I mean, I would love them to even finish the episodes that we never got from Clone Wars. But I mean, I'll settle for a sequel show any day. Like, it's unreal. But
pretty awesome.
Yeah, I got one question before we run out of time for you. Is it is there any personal Star Wars projects that you're kind of like working on, web related or otherwise, other than Rebel Scum?
Not exactly Star Wars directly, but it does touch upon Star Wars. So just one of the things, I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about trying to stay on top of things and trying to keep collecting. So I kind of found myself in a situation where my girlfriend was trying to buy something for my birthday a few years ago, and she knows I love Star Wars, but she really didn't know what to get me because she was thinking, well, I don't know what he's already got, and I don't want to get him something. I know he's quite particular, can be quite fussy about what I collect, and so she was kind of concerned about that and a little stressed out, in all honesty, and we came up with this idea, well, why don't I just give you a wish list? And I'll share a wish list of the things that I'm looking, that I'm wanting to collect. And that kind of was the seed of an idea to start start working on a project. So it's a site called geekgiftregistry.com, and basically it's pulling listings from other sites, so just collectibles, and it's not just Star Wars. So, I mean, there is a Star Wars focus in there because obviously that's near and dear to me, but it encompasses all manner of different genres, and so
if you're a collector, this is kind of for
exactly.
you. Kind of
I mean, if you're it's in the name. It's gifts. Yeah. It's a gift registry for geeks. But like I say, it's very much there is a big focus on Star Wars there. So that's something that I've been working on for the last 18 months, which is really why I haven't been doing so much with Rebel Scum. Mm-hmm. But that's currently in the beta phase, and we're just getting feedback and still making changes. But the idea is that for anybody who's an avid Star Wars collector, the idea is that they can go there and they can build up a wish list of things that maybe are currently only available for pre-order, and it gives them an opportunity to keep track of what's coming out, so they can build up their list and add things to it. But also, if they've got a birthday coming up or any other gift giving, like Christmas or whatever, some holiday event, they can share that wish list with family and friends, and then it basically takes the stress out of gift giving for their people who just have no idea what to get them and don't want to get them something that they're going to go, ooh, thanks, or oh, I already have this, or which I'll be honest, has been the situation for me in the past. I mean, a lot of the time it's because as collectors we go out and buy stuff ourselves, and so even we can be saying to somebody, we'll be saying, "Oh, I want this," and then they'll go and get it, and in the meantime you've already gone and gotten it. So that's the point of Geek Gift Registry, and so that's kind of something that I've been doing. That aside, just every now and then there's been a couple of things on Rebel Scum that I've been able to help out with. So there was something recently that again was requiring my technical expertise, so more from a technical perspective, but that's really been it for me for the last little while.
So when does your site launch? Do you have kind of like an ETA or?
We're probably looking in the middle of the year. So like I say, I mean it's up and running. People can go and visit, and like if they want to check it out, by all means feel free to do so. But we're probably looking to have an official launch later on in the year, and we'll be sending out press releases just to announce that, and we'll see where we go from there. But at the moment it's just we're getting feedback from it, and there's things that people are asking for that I'm like, okay, definitely something that we need to add. So but it's all good, and it gives me something to kind of sink my teeth into and get passionate about. And like I say, it's I'm seeing all these new things all the time, and I'm like, oh well, that's something I'll put on my wish list. So
for sure,
definitely a good opportunity there for me to keep track of things.
Yeah, well, when your site launches, shoot me a URL, and I'll drop it in one of our episodes going forward. And
that'd be great. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, we'll get our listeners kind of over to your site and check
wonderful.
It out and stuff like that. Yeah. If anyone were to follow you on Twitter or anything like that, you want to?
I'm just Adam Lamping. I think just I'm gonna have to remind myself because it's I don't tend to look at my name, but I think I'm pretty boring by virtue. Yes, I'm just Adam Lamping at Adam Lamping. So I mean I tend to tweet a lot of Star Wars, a lot of soccer for my club. So hopefully people won't get turned off by that. But no, I tend to weigh in on different Star Wars things from time to time as well. So it's not all the same thing. But be happy to chat with anyone. Yeah, anyone there as well.
Great. Well, we're out of time. So, Adam, thanks again for coming on the show.
Not at all. thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And, you're welcome back anytime. And thanks again for sharing all about Rebel Scum, your involvement with them, and your future projects in the works, and all your Star Wars collecting, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you for the invite. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime. All right, thanks everybody for tuning into the show. Follow Adam at Adam Lamping on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at SW Escape Podcast. Shoot us an email, theescapepod@outlook.com. Join the Discord and send us a voicemail, all in the description box below with the links provided, as well as rebelscum.com. Be sure to check it out for all your merchandise, action figures, and collecting news and headlines. It's a great site, and you don't want to miss a beat. You're not going to miss a beat as long as you're on that site and keeping tabs on that. So be sure to do that. Best way to help us out on the show here is obviously to leave a 5-star review and to just word of mouth share via social media or whatever else, whatever other means, with your friends and family that you listen to Star Wars Escape Pod. But the point of growing our audience is not from a money's point of view. This is actually a non-profit show and comes from the heart of a fan with no intention of making any coin whatsoever. But if you do feel the need to, of course, contribute to something, I know a lot of these sites and stuff have a Patreon account or whatever. I urge you to potentially use that money you would give to us, instead donate it to World Vision, and you can use the link in the description box. You can put in a custom amount, a one-time payment, or a monthly payment. It's up to you, but you can do that and give where it's needed most, to help vulnerable children and families who need it the most. But that's all I got for today. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great week, and may the Force be with you.
No more.